Hi, welcome to our Lunchtime Fall Prevention Month talk. Yesterday we had Dr. Alison Novak talk to us about stair design. Did you know that you can greatly improve the safety of your stairs by painting a white line on the edge of your stairs? Today we have Simon Jones. He will be talking to us about an innovative tool that you can see right here, which encourages handrail use. So I'll let him tell you more about it.
Thank you, Christiane. Okay, so as I'm talking here, you might be able to pick up my lovely assistant here, this little box, that is going to be asking people to use this handrail. So this handrail is a bit of a stage prop and it's in the way. They probably won't use it, but this is the idea. We kind of see balance in a, well, this is our model here. If we want to reduce falls, we can either try to change the person or we can try to change the environment around the person. Another thing we know is that handrails are good. People can grasp it in what we call reactive grasping, is when you have a fall and you reach out suddenly on the subway and your hand just finds the pole and it's there. But even better than that is proactive grasping, where when you lose your balance, you're already holding on to the handrail. This gives you a nice big base of support and really makes falls difficult or impossible to happen. So what we're trying to do is trying to encourage people to move more towards proactive grasping and less to reactive grasping, because reactive grasping is error prone and there's lots of things that can go wrong there. So what we did is we tested 160 older adults and we did it with 4 different cueing conditions. So cueing means like trying to get them to use the handrail more frequently. We created a visual cue where the handrail was flashing green to try to draw people's attention towards it. And then we also tried using a verbal cue, which we've implemented here. So the results and what happened in the actual kind of research behind this all is that right here, people grabbed the handrail before we moved the platform and made them fall. A lot more when we used the verbal cue. So using a light cue didn't really add to their proactive grasping experience, but the verbal cue really helped. So for a device to be kind of practical in the real world, it needs to follow a few important specifications. It needs to detect that the human's there, needs to notify them by audio. Oh, fail. It needs to run on low power so that we can just kind of leave it there and forget about it for a while. It needs to be reliable, which we're working on now, and it needs to be low cost. Some of the risks are that it could be too annoying for people who have to be around it all day, and then maybe some confusion. There's just a voice that is coming out of nowhere all of a sudden. So we had some engineers design this for us. We have kind of this design split up into a sensor block, microcontroller, which is kind of the brains behind the operation, and then finally the audio block, which is actually relaying the message onto the person that's walking by. So each block was given some unique design criteria to make sure it's low power and make sure it met the final design requirements. We did some component selection, some prototyping, and kind of went from this kind of design up here on the breadboard to a cardboard prototype, and now we have a final prototype that's ready for people to use, and we're just about to start testing it actually here at Try. But as we iterated through the prototype, we really tried to optimize it to take less power and to work kind of as robustly as possible given some of the limits of the situation. This is kind of like equation. But what this means is that on a pair of AA batteries and kind of normal frequent use, I think about 20 times an hour is what we assume, this device can last over a year, which is great. So in this slide, we're kind of just running through our design criteria. And look at all these check marks that we have. That's great. We have a sensor range of about 1.5 meters. So the way it works is it picks up that somebody's in the area, and then it starts polling for their distance. So really, this should only go off if someone's actually walking towards the device. The audio volume is sufficient, and that was a problem because with our low power AA batteries, trying to get enough oomph on our sound was difficult. Through some good algorithms, it's managed to be low power. It works in a bunch of different temperatures, which we're able to actually test here in our wonderful winter lab facility. And finally, it has a low cost. All of these components to build was about $50, and at volume, that would be even less. So the final device meets all of these design specifications, and we think it's ready for the real world. And in this case, we're using it to say, attention, use the handrail. Attention, use the handrail. But really, this device could have a broader use where you're using motion and sensing people moving towards it to really deliver any message. The programming of the message is really the easiest part of this whole thing. So what we're going to do next is install and test it in a real world setting here at TRI. We have an instrumented stairwell that we're going to add this to soon. We're going to install and test perhaps in a private residence for a cognitively challenged gentleman who's requested some assistance on the stairs. And then perhaps this will sometime be available in a wonderful store near you. So really the overall goal here is that we're trying to promote proactive handrail use so that when you lose your balance and you slip and you have a fall, you're already holding onto the handrail. And that's really what we're trying to get after here. So now if there are any questions, I would appreciate those. We'll try to set this off here for the microphone.
Attention, use the handrail.
Yeah, there we go.
I have one quick question. So maybe you could just describe, it sounds like a really interesting experiment where you did this flashing, I guess the flashing handrail versus the audio handrail. Like what did the flashing look like? Like was it lights flashing on the handrail? I wonder if you could describe that experiment a bit more.
Sure. So I didn't include a picture, but what we had was kind of a simulated home environment on a 6 meter long moving platform. And so we asked people to enter a room, which they'd never been before, to go up the stairs and make a phone call. So there's a desk at the end with a phone. And then along the way, there's a handrail about this long, about this color, but it was translucent. So upon the kind of cue of people entering the room, we had some LEDs inside that would flash at 3 hertz, which is a good kind of alarm notice thing. And so we're also having the people wear an eye tracker, so we're tracking whether or not they're looking at the handrail as they go, if this is drawing their attention at all. And we were hoping that the visual cue would work as well as the verbal cue, just because it can cut down on annoyance in the situation. But what we found was the total opposite. And actually, the visual cue of the handrail flashing did worse than no cue at all. It's almost like if it's a flashing tube, it doesn't look like a handrail anymore. Maybe that's why we didn't go down that road, because it didn't seem to work. So we didn't try to find out too hard. But yeah. Oh, and then so once the person enters the room, the handrail cue goes off. Then the room moves, and the person experiences a loss of balance. And so at that point, either they're holding onto the handrail already, or they have to do a reactive grasp, or whatever. Yep.
So that's in that scenario, the participant sort of, I guess in that experimental scenario, do you have a sense of whether that relates to real life now, having played with this thing? Like, do you actually see, I don't know, has there been any assessment of whether that experimental moving platform scenario matches real life?
Well, that's really what we'd like to figure out, and that's kind of the whole point of what we do in a lot of cases, is that we come up with an idea, we design the experiments to prove whether or not it's going to work. Then we have a device that we can now kind of test on real people in real situations where they're not necessarily expecting it, and see if it actually changes their behavior or not. So results are pending. Yeah, thank you.
Do we have any other questions? Yeah.
How do you plan to measure how effective this is when you use it at TRI? Like, will you have a video camera that like makes sure people are using it, or what?
Yes, exactly. We will install a video camera, and so We've currently collected a lot of data already of people using, in this case, a stairwell without the handrail cue device. And so now we want to evaluate the same kind of situation and get a few thousand instances of people using the stairs with the handrail cue device, and then see if that does truly make a difference for people.
Yeah, the other thing that, oh yeah, one more question, yeah.
I know that you did visual and verbal cues. Have you thought about maybe hearing or vision impaired participants as well? And is there like a third alternative that you could provide?
What we also did, and one of the groups was the multimodal cue. I guess I kind of flew past that, but it was the visual and the audio cue together, which performed worse than the verbal only cue, but better than the visual only cue. Multimodal is usually the best way to deliver this, but yeah, there may be something funky about the flashing handrail that we didn't investigate too far. Yeah. But certainly that's a concern. Yeah. I guess the point would be that in the worst case, it kind of would be like we have now. So it would be kind of a do no harm situation, but we may be able to help the handrail experience for some people.
The other thought that jumped up for me when you were when you mentioned the fact that this is annoying for people that have to sit around it. So I'm imagining a public place where there's a staircase and there's a security guard sitting across from it, hearing it all the time. Have you seen? There's now technology, I think, that has it's like a focused audio thing. Like it's like a lens. They describe it as like a lens for audio. So you point it in this direction, and only if the person is in this area do they hear it. Otherwise, outside of that, it's very attenuated. I wonder if that would be something you could incorporate.
Hopefully, yeah, in the future, and that is something that we looked into right away because of this concern. So kind of the lowest cost speaker of that type that matched the specifications was about $200. So it would have been another 400% of our budget. But I mean, certainly, if it's like everything else, these technologies come down in cost. So in 3 or 4 years, maybe that is the most appropriate speaker for the situation.
Okay. Any other comments? Questions? No? Okay. Well, thanks very much, Simon, for that great talk on this neat device, and we look forward to seeing it in use around Toronto Rehab. Well, thanks very much for the talk. And tomorrow we'll have more on handrails. It's going to be Vicky Commissar talking about how handrails can be designed to be safe in your home. So come back for that. Thanks.